Imagine staying late at a movie theater. The popcorn machine still warm, the last film reel stopped spinning, but when you step back into the auditorium, someone's still sitting there, and they were never on the ticket list. My name's the Tales Keeper, and tonight I've got 5 true horror stories from movie theaters. Places built to entertain, but haunted by something much darker. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a horror story. Story 1. The Projector That Wouldn't Die. Theater 3 in a small-town Ohio cinema wasn't famous, but for the staff who worked there, it was unforgettable. They called it the Cursed Room. It started with something strange. During a thunderstorm in 2004, the entire block lost power. The concession stands shut down. The neon marquee outside went black. But when the employees went to check on Theater 3, they found the projector still running, casting a dim, flickering image across the screen. The film wasn't even what was scheduled. That night was supposed to be a kids' movie. Instead, the screen glowed with grainy black and white footage, an old horror film no one recognized. A woman screaming, a man staggering with his face covered in blood. And the worst part? The reels inside the machine were empty. Nothing was loaded. They thought it was a fluke. But it kept happening. Anytime the neighborhood lost power, that projector would hum to life, the light beam cutting through the dusty air. And every time, the film would be different. Always horror. Always decades old. One usher swore he heard muffled laughter inside the auditorium during one of these screenings, even though it was completely empty. Another said he saw shadows walking across the seats while the Phantom movie played. The manager finally had enough and replaced the projector with a brand new digital model. But on the very first night during a routine test, the new projector froze and played one of the same old reels the staff had seen before. The movies followed the machine, not the hardware. By the time a priest was called to bless the theater, the staff refused to enter Theater 3 alone. Some swore that if you stood in the projection booth long enough, you could hear whispering voices from the speakers, whispering names of employees who had quit. The blessing seemed to quiet the activity, but to this day, the staff say Theater 3 has a rule. No horror films are allowed, not by choice, by demand. Because when they tried once more in 2012 to run a Halloween screening of The Exorcist, the projector jammed halfway through, caught fire, and burned the reel. Story 2. The Patrons Who Never Left. In Los Angeles, one usher, let's call him Daniel, hated working the late Friday shift. Not because of the long hours, but because of the couple. They always came in at the same time, bought 2 tickets in cash, and headed straight to the back row of Theater 9. Daniel noticed them because they were strangely quiet. Too quiet. No whispering, no shifting in their seats, no reaching for snacks. They just sat, hands folded neatly in their laps, staring straight at the screen. But here's the part that unnerved him. When the credits rolled and the lights came on, the seats were always empty. Not just empty, perfectly clean. No drink cups, no popcorn bags, not even wrinkles in the cushions where people had been sitting. At first, Daniel thought he was just missing them slipping out. But security cameras told a different story. The footage showed the couple walking into the auditorium, tickets in hand. After that, nothing. They were never seen leaving. The lobby doors never opened. The fire exits never triggered. It was like they vanished inside the theater. One night, Daniel decided he'd had enough of the mystery. Halfway through the film, he walked up the aisle and glanced at the back row. There they were, The couple, motionless, staring straight ahead. The man's suit looked out of place, like it belonged to another decade. The woman's dress shimmered faintly in the dim light. Daniel raised his flashlight, the beam cutting across their faces, and that's when his stomach dropped. The seats were empty. The light passed straight through them, showing only dust particles floating in the air. The couple was gone, like they had never been there at all. Daniel backed away slowly, his hands shaking, the sound of the film reel clicking behind him. He told his manager what he saw, but the manager just gave him a strange look and said, "Don't worry about them. They've been coming here longer than I've worked here." Daniel quit the next day, and to this day the staff never sells tickets for the last row in Theater 9. Not because they can't, but because some seats, it seems, are already taken. Story 3, vanished between showtimes. In 2016, at a theater in Texas, a man walked in for a late-night showing of The Conjuring 2. He was ordinary, jeans, a baseball cap pulled low, ticket stub in hand. Staff remembered him because he came alone and didn't buy any snacks, just slipped quietly into Theater 7. Halfway through the film, as the tension on screen reached a peak, the man stood up, excused himself past the row, and walked toward the glowing restroom sign in the hallway. He never came back. At first, nobody noticed. People get up all the time, but when the credits rolled, his jacket was still draped over his seat. His phone buzzed in the cup holder with a text notification. His soda sat half empty on the floor. The usher waited a few minutes, then checked the restroom. No answer. The stalls were empty. The sinks were dry. They checked the lobby. Nothing. The parking lot. His car was still there. Keys in the ignition. Wallet in the cup holder. Security footage only deepened the mystery. It showed the man entering Theater 7, sitting down, and then, hours later, walking up the aisle to leave. But after that moment, he vanished. He never appeared on any other camera. Not in the lobby, not in the halls, not at the exits. One frame he existed. The next, he was gone. Police investigated for months. Flyers went up. His family begged for answers. But there was nothing. It became a cold case. The staff, though, whispered something else. They said Theater 7 had always been strange. Too many complaints about cold spots and shadows moving across the screen. One former employee swore that sometimes, just before the previews began, the audience would hear footsteps pacing behind the last row, even if no one was there. To this day, the man's disappearance remains unsolved. His belongings were boxed up and sent to his family. His car sat in the lot for weeks before being towed away. But sometimes, when Theater 7 is empty, ushers claim they still find a folded jacket hanging over the armrest of Seat H12, the same seat he left behind. Story 4. The Shadow Audience. It was a Tuesday matinee, slow day, barely anyone buying tickets. A young employee, Marcus, was sent to do a routine check of Theater 5 before the next showing. When he pushed the door open, his breath caught in his throat. The auditorium looked full. Dozens of people sat perfectly still, their faces hidden in the dim red glow of the exit lights. The screen was blank, yet every seat seemed occupied. The air was heavy, carrying that strange hush. The silence of a crowd waiting for something to begin. Marcus froze. He checked the clipboard in his hand. Theater 5 wasn't scheduled for another 2 hours. No tickets had been sold. No staff had let anyone in. He stepped back out, heart racing, and went to the front counter. "Hey," he asked the box office clerk, "did anyone just..." Start a private screening in Theater 5? The clerk shook her head. Nope, it's empty. Confused, Marcus went back. When he opened the door again, the auditorium was silent and empty. Every seat perfectly upright. No jackets, no purses, no popcorn bags. Just silence. But something was wrong. Marcus swore the seats were warm. When he placed his hand down, the cushion still held the weight, as though someone had just gotten up. He backed away, the skin on his arms prickling with goosebumps. That night, he couldn't shake the feeling. The silence in that auditorium wasn't ordinary. It felt alive, like the crowd was still there, waiting for the show to start. Other staff later admitted they'd seen the same thing. One girl swore she heard the faint rustle of people shifting in their chairs when she walked past the doors. Another claimed she heard coughing from the auditorium when it was locked and dark. Over time, Theater 5 earned a reputation. The staff began to whisper that it wasn't an audience at all, but shadows. Fragments of people who once sat there, who never left when the credits rolled. And if you listen closely, in the dead quiet before a screening, you can hear it too. A faint ripple through the air. The sound of dozens of invisible people breathing together, waiting for the movie to begin. Story 5. The Final Curtain Call. In 1999, in a small rural Canadian town, the local independent theater decided to close its doors for good. Business had slowed, the building was outdated, and the owner announced one final screening before shutting down forever. The last film they chose? House on Haunted Hill. A fitting farewell. Locals crowded in that night, filling the old red seats one last time. But halfway through the movie, something went terribly wrong. A fire broke out in the projection booth. Staff scrambled to evacuate the audience, but firefighters arriving minutes later swore they saw something impossible through the smoke-stained glass. Dozens of silhouettes, still seated calmly, watching the flames as if it were part of the show. Not panicking, not moving, just watching. The fire consumed everything. The reels melted, the walls collapsed, the roof caved in. Yet when the blaze was finally brought under control, the investigators made a chilling discovery. There were no bodies. None. Every seat where the silhouettes had been seen was empty. No bones, no remains, no trace of the crowd that should have been there. The only thing that survived untouched was the massive white movie screen. It stood tall in the middle of the charred ruins, perfectly clean, perfectly intact, as if waiting for another reel to roll. The town never rebuilt the theater. The lot remains abandoned, overgrown with weeds, but locals still whisper about it. Some say if you park nearby late at night, you can still see the glow of film light flickering against the trees, like a projector running on nothing at all. Others claim you can hear faint applause echoing in the wind, an audience that never left, giving the final curtain call to a film that never truly ended, because in that theater, the show is still going on. Movie theaters were built for stories, for light and laughter, for the comfort of being lost in a crowd. But sometimes, the crowd isn't really there. Projectors that run after the power dies. Patrons who vanish between frames. Entire audiences made of shadows. Maybe theaters don't just show films. Maybe they keep something of the people who sat inside them. So next time you go to the movies, take one last look around when the credits roll. Make sure the seat beside you is really empty. Because some projectors never stop running, and some audiences never leave. My name is the Tales Keeper, and this has been another nightmare for Giggles. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next horror story waiting in the dark.